Session for its regularly scheduled meeting of October 3rd, 2024. I'm Joey Hargis, Metro Zoning Administrator, and I'll be presenting the cases for review in today's public hearing. The board would ask if you have your cell phones with you, if you don't mind, put it on silent or vibrate so as not to interrupt today's proceedings. We would appreciate that. The procedure today will be go through the cases on set for public hearing today. Those typically the cases that are listed as new business under the BZA's revised agendas that we produce. We'll go through the photographs and sketches and site plans submitted by the appellants. We'll do that on the screen here by means of a PowerPoint presentation. After my presentation, the applicant in the case will be allowed to come forward first and present their testimony to the board. If there is not opposition present, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present their case to the board. The clock will run for testimony. It will stop for questions asked by the board and your answer to the board's question. But once you get back into testimony, we'll start that clock back up. As you're sitting up in front of us here, there are 4 seat locations for you to speak to the board. To your immediate right on the ledge there will be a clock that keeps track of that time for you. If there is a case and there's opposition present to a case, both the appellant and the opposition as a group will have 10 minutes to present their case to the board. That's 10 minutes as a group, not per speaker. So if you have multiple speakers, be sure to divide your time accordingly before you come up. The applicant would just advise that you will want to save some of your 10 minutes as rebuttal time for the opposition's testimony. After the public hearing is closed by the board will discuss and vote on the cases before you today as outlined in Section 1740-180 of the Metro Code Law. The board is empowered to act under Section 13.7.207 of the State Code. We'll go through all cases set for public hearing. As I said, I do have some preliminary announcements on some few cases, and let me get those out of the way first. Then after that, I'll follow with a consent agenda, and we'll discuss that, and then we'll proceed with today's business. So the first preliminary announcement is a case on page 3 of our agenda, case 2024-220, Mr. Jorge Lopez, the appellant, owners in common at 322 Wallace Road, had filed an appeal for a special exception over some landscaping in that development. Mr. Lopez has withdrawn that case. So if you are here for case 220, on Wallace Court, or in the Wallace Road area, that case will not be held. It has been withdrawn, and the applicant will comply with the code. And the next case for a preliminary announcement is on the last page, page 5, at the top of page 5, case 2024-225, Mr. Paul Simiu, the appellant, 1532 Neely's Bend Road, requesting a special exception for adaptive residential. That case has been postponed until October 17th. It's 2 weeks from today in this room. So those are the only 2 preliminary announcements I have, Mr. Chairman. Next, we'll go through the consent agenda. Prior to today's hearing, the board does have a consent agenda, and the chairman reviews the cases and feels that if the applicant has proven their hardship or has met the criteria for a special exception, he recommends the case to the remainder of the board. I'll enter those cases recommended for consent at this time. And if you are here in opposition to any of these case numbers that I call next, please raise your hand and we will pull that case from consent and hear it in its regular order. So the first case recommended for consent is case 2, is on page 3 of our agenda. At the bottom of page 3, case 2024-221, Terry Cocciola, the appellant, 3544 Dickerson LLC, the owner of the property at 3544 Dickerson Pike, requesting a variance from the parking requirements in CS. Are there any parties present that are opposed to case 221? Okay, Mr. Chairman, seeing none. The hardship in this case is the floodplain and floodway at the rear of the subject property is the hardship that necessitates a need for a variance in this case. The next case recommended for the consent agenda is on page 4. It is at the middle of case 2024-223. Mr. Brian Hubbard's the appellant, Thomas McEwen Revocable Living Trust, the owner of the property at 601 Hagan Street, requesting a variance in rear setback in the IWD district to construct new retail buildings on site. Are there any parties present opposed to case 223? Mr. Chairman, seeing none. Then finally, the last case recommended for consent is at the last page on page 5. Case 2024-226, Black Bear Holdings LLC, the parent and owner of the property at 1003, 1005, and 1007 Antioch Pike, requesting a variance in street setback in RS5 to construct new single-family residences. Are there any parties in opposition to case 226 present? Mr. Chairman, seeing none, that is your consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, if you're here for cases 221, 223, and 226, your cases have been granted. You are free to go. As always, I'll extend an invitation for you to sit with the rest of us and watch the other cases. And per usual, no one ever stays. So, all right, Mr. Chairman, our first item that we'll do under BZA old business, we'll take a little bit out of sequence because it's at the top of page 2. This is a case that was heard at the last hearing in September and was tied on votes. So the public hearing in the case for Mr. Frank Marco at 3424 Springbrook is tied up on votes. The motion is to approve. Motion was made by Mr. Bradford, Ms. Johnson seconded. Mr. Pepper, you voted for it. Ms. Carpenet voted against. So the vote stands tied, 3 votes for, 1 against. Mr. Cole, I'll poll you first. Have you reviewed the record in this case, and do you wish to participate?
I do not wish to participate.
Okay, Mr. Cole is noted as not participating. He'll be listed as absent for this case. Mr. Ransom, do you wish to participate in case 115, and have you reviewed the record in this case?
I'm sorry, Joe, which case was this again?
115, 3424 Springbrook Drive.
Yes, I've reviewed the case, and yes, I'll participate.
Okay, and Mr. Ransom, how do you vote on this case?
Do I have the ability to ask a question, or do I just have the ability to vote based upon what I reviewed?
The rule, you should be able to vote just on what you reviewed, since the public hearing would be closed.
Okay. In that case, I would vote yes for it.
Mr. Ransom, you're voting in the affirmative. With that, members, case 2024-115 has been approved by this board on a vote of 4, 1, and 1, and an appropriate order will be entered in that case. So that concludes all of our preliminary business. We'll now turn to the first case at the top of our agenda under old business section. This case, a reminder, Mr. Bradford has recused himself from this case, is departing the room, and I'll come get Mr. Bradford once we're done with this case. But before the board now, case 2024-72, Mr. Brandon Howington Construction, owner of the property at 9022 Highway 70, requesting a special exception in AR2A to construct indoor batting facility, referred to the board under sections 1716-220, 1740-180. Mr. Chairman, the record in this case is closed. Public hearing is currently closed. It was deferred from our meeting of 9/19 because we did not have a quorum. We do now have a quorum present to finish this case. Since our hearing, we did receive a email from NDOT saying that they took no exception. There is a representative from NDOT present. That was the reason for the postponement. Prior meetings ago was to hear from NDOT. Opposition in this case have submitted some documents for your review. You will need to decide whether you wish to open the public hearing to allow those to come in, or if you wish the public hearing to remain closed. But that's where this case stands at this time. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to you.
Having reviewed the materials, does anybody have an interest in reopening the public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, it is on, is it not coming through? It's on, yeah.
I would like to propose to hear from both applicant and opponent, and here's why. Because we do not have courtesy to extend to hear from council member unless we open the public hearing. So with extend the courtesy to council member, I think it's prudent to open the public hearing. However, to be fair, it would be prudent to hear briefly from both applicant and opposition. So I would like to propose 5 minutes five minutes each to applicant and opponent, so we can refresh our memory as well.
Okay, I think, I'm against reopening the public hearing because the applicant and the opposition have been here, I think, 7 times now. Where we left off was we had narrowed it down to that we wanted to have a traffic study, and then some board members wanted the opportunity to ask NDOT questions. NDOT is here, and a whole bunch of new issues have been raised that I think have been raised too late. And my concern here is that we've got an applicant coming back here for the 6th or 7th time, and it just doesn't reflect well on us. It looks like, it just doesn't look efficient, and it's reason property owners would think we're not acting efficiently. So, but it's a board vote whether to, a board vote whether to open it or not. So I've spoken my piece, and Mr. Ransom, Ms. Carpeneck may want to weigh in or may want to just vote.
Yeah,
And I
I mean,
would say if we do reopen it, I think it ought to be limited to the issue we left off on, which is, I believe there were 2 members that wanted to hear from NDOT. And that's what we had boiled this case down to, so.
that's essentially what I was going to say. I mean, I've reviewed all the cases, even though I wasn't here. And that seems like kind of the last item. So if we did reopen it, I would just stick to specifically the questions around NDOT.
2 questions to NDOT.
To NDOT, yes.
Okay.
I will agree to that, but I also felt we weren't trying to be inefficient. We were just trying to make sure NDOT were able to review it in a proper manner, and they weren't here the last time.
And I didn't mean to say we were being inefficient. I just think if we start from the beginning now and reopen the public hearing and hear all these issues, I think that it is going to look like we're going back and doing what we were doing 2 months ago, and I just don't think that's what we ought to be doing, but.
Yeah, no, thanks for that clarification. We were just
Yeah, no, I was
trying to
not.
act in the best interest of safety.
I totally agree with that. And where we left off was fine with me, and so I wasn't trying to say anybody had been inefficient, but I was concerned about what's going to happen if we reopen the public hearing and start over, so.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to reopen the public hearing to address the last remaining comments around NDOT.
Okay. Is the motion to specifically ask questions of NDOT?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks for the clarification.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Any against? Okay. All right, so the public hearing, did you want to have a time limit on that, or?
I think you said 5 minutes? 5 minutes.
Can we just clarify
I'm
again for
sorry, I
the
didn't
vote?
look over there. Did you vote against it? Yeah. Okay.
So,
I forgot you were there, right, sorry. So
so the vote again was 3 in favor of opening and 2 against?
right,
All right.
but
So that motion
I'm not
fails.
sure that the 4 vote requirement applies to reopening the hearing, or whether it's a majority vote that applies.
I'm looking at your rules, and under 7C, it refers to how the presence of 4 members shall constitute a quorum and must be present to vote on any case. I don't see anything in the rules that allows less than 4 votes in order to pass any matter. I think you need 4.
Well, I mean, let me just say this, to be fair, I think I got ahead of myself a little bit. Where we did leave off was that some members wanted NDOT to come back and to be able to ask questions specifically of NDOT. So I'll be glad, and I've seen they take no exception, so I don't think there's a lot they're going to add to it, but I will vote in the affirmative that we reopen it for 5 minutes to ask questions for NDOT. I think that's where y'all left off, and I think that was a concern you had, so I don't want to keep you from doing that, so. Okay, so if I change my vote, that passes, so we can hear from NDOT for.
Do I need to make a motion?
So is the NDOT representative here? Okay, if you could step up, please, sir.
That doesn't matter, Mr. Hadley.
It doesn't matter. And if you'll make sure you turn that microphone on so that it's red there, please, sir.
There we go.
Matt Hadaball, traffic engineer with NDOT.
Okay. I think some board members are going to have some questions for you about this particular case.
Well, I did not have any specific questions. I did see that you reviewed the current traffic study.
Yes,
And you found, or NDOT found no exceptions to it.
yes, that's correct.
Okay, and so we wanted to know that.
Yeah.
And that's why we had deferred from the last meeting, so I thought maybe my colleague had some other questions for you.
I think my specific question is, you reviewed and you are satisfied with the time of the traffic count. And only thing I'm not still clear is vegetation, because that time vegetation belongs to the opposite side, more so TDOT right away. So what kind of jurisdiction or mandate we have to clear to have safe distance in that specific portion?
Well, TDOT is, they have certain, I guess, entities within their agency that remove vegetation. So it would be a collaborative effort with TDOT if there are any issues that still prevail at the time of construction and stuff. So we will work alongside with TDOT to ensure that there aren't any issues.
So as a metro agent, do we have the ability to mandate TDOT to remove the vegetation?
Yes, if there is a safety issue, yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. I just needed to make it clear in that
Yeah,
specific
of course, of
portion.
course.
Appreciate it.
Any further questions for?
I have one question, and excuse me, this has taken quite a long time, so this might have already been answered. But I know very early on, some people in the community were generally concerned about this particular intersection anyway, this turn, because it was a dangerous turn. And I don't know what other items that can be done at the same time to address that. I don't know if just by default, but I don't know if you can answer the question if you have any input from the community as to what were the accidents and other things that were previously there to where those could also be addressed kind of at the same time.
Yeah, we were able to pull crash reports that, to the extent that we have access to, because there's a certain range that we have, I guess, years. It goes back to, I believe, 2015. We were able to pull the crash reports for that, and given that the type of crashes that occur with an access to this location is on the outside of a curve, if it was on the opposite side of the street, that would create more issues because that curvature is now behind you. So there's even more obstruction of sight distance. But given that they're on the outside of the curve, the type of crashes that were occurring, there are more rear-ended crashes, not necessarily would be angle crashes. Not that we don't take light and seriousness to any type of crash, but when there's a higher frequency of a certain type of crash, we don't want to try to promote movements or certain types of maneuvers that would increase that. Given that these would be more of, I guess, turning movements out of that, I just don't think that would create more issues in that instance. But the traffic study did show, they did perform what's called a gap analysis, which shows the amount of space in between each car, given the amount of traffic that's on the road. And in a typical maneuver of turning left, which I would anticipate more vehicles turning left than right out of this site, it takes about 7.5 seconds. There's more than 100 gaps within the existing traffic volumes to allow those types of movements within a peak hour. So,
Thank you.
yes.
Any further questions for him? Okay, thank you, sir. We
Yeah,
appreciate it.
of course, thank you.
Okay. The reopened public hearing is closed. I will make a motion that we approve the application. And I believe that the requirements of the special exception have been met. So,
Is there any discussion on that motion? Actually,
sure.
somebody has
Yeah,
to
I mean,
second.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to cut you off from discussion. Glad to discuss.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. So discussion, yeah.
Sure. I would like to, think about overall special exception requirement, because we have been, discussing this application quite a long time. I think it's based on special exception, general provision. So, as a newbie to this body, I have read the ordinance related to special exception, general provision. A, burden of proof, and B, ordinance compliance. C, integrity of adjacent areas. D, design and architectural compatibility. So those are the few of the items we have to consider when we approve special exception. So I have been thinking if any of those general provision has met with this application. So I'm still not comfortable say this application met 100% with this, condition, and here's why. This is, as I was reviewing, I'm reading Metropolitan Commission's recommendation, because, this type of application, we rely on other agencies such as NDOT or such as Metropolitan Commission. So Planning Department analysis says, surrounding area consists of agricultural zoning, AL2A. The recreational center, commercial amusement outside is allowed as a special exception in AL2A. And that time when we are talking back in June, I didn't go any further research of my own because I literally accepted recreation center and commercial amusement outside is appropriate, allowed in AL2A. But when I go back to the land use table, commercial amusement outside, such as golf range, is not allowed in AL2A. So because I was thinking there's a golf range in Bellevue, so this is allowed, so commercial amusement such as batting cage must be certain extent could be allowed. So that's why, when we decided, is it a commercial amusement inside or is it commercial recreation center? We settled as a recreation center. And also, commercial amusement outside is allowed AL2A. But that golf range in specific, I was thinking is allowed because special exception accessory to golf course. There's golf range. It was allowed because there is a golf course. So it's different. And I was looking at the land use table. So commercial amusement inside and commercial amusement outside is not allowed AL2A or any residential zoning area. So its recommendation from Metro Planning Commission was include some misinformation. So that skewed my, original analysis. So having said that, so why it bothers me so much, it's integrity of adjacent area, because this is a policy-wise rural maintenance area. So if you go back 1 mile, there's I think, kind of rural gas station. And then if you go another mile, which is another county, but they do have, I see, Dollar General and church building. And they do have like a rural kind of setting, not expensive, not large, but compared to a front parking allocation, this proposed batting cage will be at minimum twice bigger than existing Dollar General building and church building, and much higher. So in the rural maintenance area, architectural integrity and surrounding area with this type of building is appropriate or not is under the general provision we should consider. So for that reason, I am not really comfortable with this proposed architectural design and closeness to the street. because rural area, they do have like a deeper setback, like a minimum 200, 300 feet if you look at the White Creek, those actual rural area. So this is kind of in a setting, a rural setting. Existing houses much deeper setback, 200, 300 feet from the Highway 70. So this one is, yes, meet in the letter of the law because it meets 100 feet setback from the major street, but it's gigantic building and in the middle of rural area. So with that, I just could not find myself meet with special exception general provision C and D. So that's why I'm inclining to oppose this application.
Okay. Anyone else? I think my thought on that would be, and I appreciate yours, would be that, any building is it's right now, it's just completely rural land, but the property owner doesn't have to leave it that way. That's kind of a basic property right. It's 26 acres. And I don't remember, I think it was discussed, but this 19,000 square foot building, I believe, is going to be a lot less visually intrusive than if it were developed residentially, which I think it could be. I think also the residential development would probably have a greater impact on the traffic and parking issues. So that's kind of my response to your concerns.
I really agree with what you're saying. Architecturally, it bothers me too, but because they were allowed the 100-foot setback, I'm having trouble voting against it, but I would like to, but so I appreciate your points.
Mr. Cole, Mr. Ransom, any comments? Okay, well, there's a motion and a second. The motion is to approve this special exception. There's been a second, so we'll vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so that passes 4-1, so.
Okay, the board approves case 2024-72 on a vote of 4 and 1. And Mr. Chairman, if we'll pause for a
You
minute.
set a record for the number of times I think y'all have been back here, so.
Mr. Chairman, if we could take a break, I'll go get
Thank you both for
Mr.
your patience
Bradford.
and the very excellent materials you submitted.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bradford has now returned, and we'll go back to the first case under new business today. The case is 2024-119, 8661 Wrights Creek Pike. Rick Freitag is the appellant. Friday Properties, Inc., the owner of the property located at 8661 Whites Creek Pike, requesting an item D, which is a change to a non-conforming use, appeal to change the legally non-conforming structure in the AR2A district and the use of the property as well. The appellant seeking to use the current structure for storage and use the property as building contractor supply. The appellant has alleged jurisdiction under section 1740-180 item D. Are the applicant present? All right, sir, if you come forward, are there parties present in opposition to this case? Okay, Mr. Chairman, seeing none, Mr. Freitag, I'll go over the case record first, and then I'll turn it over to you, and you'll have 5. Oh, there's. Okay. I will just for procedures purposes, I'll put you in the opposition category. Maybe Mr. Freitag will cover your question, but if not, then you can come forward and ask your question of the board. So with that, I'll reset the clock to 10 minutes. But first, let me go back through the case record on the screen in front of us here. The subject property is located, sorry, I'm a little bit out of sequence there. located on the west margin of Whites Creek Pike. This is just south of the county line with Robertson County. If you can see my pointer here in a second. This is the Robertson County line here in the northwest part. The subject property originally in our record shows as a bar long ago, and was a bar located on the property for some decades. It came to this board, I believe in the early to mid 90s, sought a item D change of use from bar to the ceramics building, which was there on the property. And this is a subsequent case of a change of use case from the ceramics to building contractor supply. This is the site plan submitted by the appellant in showing their proposed use of the property. I will zoom in a little bit if I can to help you. This is the, in the pointer here, sorry, this is, I don't know, that doesn't let me stay zoomed in and point to, but this building is currently existing on the property. And then proposed buildings would be removed from the property, fenced-in area for storage located in green, lay-down area for materials. I'll let the applicant talk a little bit about their business. The standards of review for this case, if you wouldn't mind, please, Ann, I did not bring my code book with me, on 1740. Standards that this board is to review. From a photograph standpoint, I did not enter into the subject property upon my visit there. I believe there's a chain or something across the thing, so I did not want to trespass into the property. But view looking north, and then this photograph is south on south along Whites Creek Pike toward Jolton, and then that's all I've got there. I'll leave the area photograph for the. So again, looking, thanks, Christy. I've got looking at your standard of review under 1740, 650 of the code. 1740-650C, change of land here. This is in a non-residential zoning district. Agricultural is a non-residential use. And it says existing non-conforming use may be changed to another non-conforming use, to a new non-conforming use upon a determination by the Board of Zoning Appeals that the new non-conforming use will be more compatible with surrounding land areas than the existing non-conforming use. That's 1740-650C4. And it
So
follows
the
that.
standard has to be more compatible
Yes,
than the
sir.
existing non-conforming use?
Yes,
not-
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And that's what it says. The board shall, that the new non-conforming use will be more compatible with surrounding land uses than the existing non-conforming use. And the existing non-conforming use is that ceramics business that was there. All right.
So it's going, okay.
Yes, you're going in the, going to utilize the building that exists on the property. And I'll let the applicant cover this. There are a couple storage buildings that will be removed, and then he was proposing a lay-down area just to the west.
Okay.
And this is an item D, or it's not a hardship issue?
That's correct.
It's strictly, is it more?
Correct, it is an item D.
More conforming than okay.
Yes, sir. And I know you guys don't get many of these, so I always like to go over the standard of review for this type of case. Okay. That, you have 10 minutes to present. I'll give us back to you, Christy. Thank you. And then we'll mark that gentleman, not necessarily opposed, but has questions, and we'll let him come up and ask if Mr. Freitag doesn't cover it in his presentation. All right, sir, go right ahead now.
Is your light on there, sir? If it'll turn red. And if you'll give us your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. My name is Rick Freitag. I'm a representative of Friday Properties, Inc. I'm also the CEO of the Tradesman Group. We are a restoration building contractor performing a considerable amount of work in the Nashville, greater Tennessee area, including down to Chattanooga. We've been operating here for in excess of 12 years. We currently have a yard and laydown area in Old Hickory that we're outgrowing. To give you a little history, we acquired this property that was sold in auction in July of this year, understanding that it did have a non-conforming permit for its current use. We were anticipating at the time of the purchase and auction that we would be able to make an appeal for this permitted use of the property to serve as staging and laydown and storage of construction-related equipment for our operations that we conduct throughout the Nashville, Greater Tennessee area. So,
So you're going to use the existing building, but for storage, for indoor storage, but you're not building any other facility?
we don't have any planned expansion of new building at this time. We'll add a few offices inside at some point. We don't currently.
Inside the current building?
Inside the current building at some point we will, yes, sir.
And you're not, this is, as I kind of understood your application, it's storage, warehousing,
Yeah.
lay down yard.
It's not a place of sale.
And it's not, so there's not going to be, a customer ingress, egress.
No.
Is there any sort of machinery operation or anything like that that's going to be happening?
Well, with the activities in the yard, unloading and loading of trucks on occasion.
But not like, there's not going to be like, some sort of manufacturing or
No.
welding type operation? Okay.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Got it.
So,
May I ask a future expansion or improvement plan of the driveway? I think you propose maybe in the future widening or improving the access.
part of the layout of the property, it was 100-plus acres when it was sold in auction. It was split into 3 plots. There's a house to the rear of the property that's accessible through the drive that currently, that we use for access to our building. We're contemplating putting in an alternate drive to give that property owner essentially a private access through our property that wouldn't come right next to our building. So would be considered an improvement or upgrade to the property. We also plan to upgrade the existing drive, make it wider and more resistant to washout and so forth and some of the rains, because it's a gravel drive.
Any plan for the future expansion of the storage building? I understand you will be utilizing existing building, but in the future, you plan to
No immediate plans. Any future plans we would obviously bring to the board for approval. It's 8,600 square feet right now. It has plenty of space for our current needs for the projected future. That's part of the appeal when we purchased the property. So. I will say also that when we sent out the letter, we got a response from Mr. David Newbold he's the HOA of the Coopertown Farms. He inquired about our intended use of the property. We shared that with him. He responded with an email of support saying that he would contact members of this board, expressing his support of our intended use, saying that that it seemed like what we were doing was an improvement to its previous use. I don't want to quote him I'd have to read the exact term of his response, but that's essentially what he expressed, an element of support for our intended use.
So, one more question from me is, existing is a ceramic storage. So I think the traffic-wise, they're bringing some material in large trucks. So in your operation, what's the difference between current operation and you will be proposing the size of the traffic-wise, load-wise, and travel time, day, those operation-wise?
Right. We will have at times large deliveries with large trucks as well, but it won't be frequent. Sometimes once a week. There won't be large frequencies to that. There may be daily use at times. It'll depend upon operations and what's going on a week-to-week basis.
Okay, I think you have no more questions for now. You have 8 minutes for rebuttal, so I believe there's a gentleman here in opposition, or we've at least categorized you as opposition. So yeah, come on up and and sir, you'll be able to speak again after.
Yes, sir.
This gentleman speaks.
My name, sorry.
And if you can make sure that red light is on and tell us your name and address, please.
Mr. Freitag, if you'll.
Okay, my name is Tim Brown, and I'm a resident about 2 houses up the hill going back toward Jolton from this resident here. Some concerns. I've lived there for 8 years, and there is major traffic on that road. I have seen several accidents on that road in that area because of the hill that's going down to Robertson County before it crosses the creek. If there's big trucks coming in and out of there, that's going to cause major traffic jams on that road. Depending on what time of day, of course. If you go out there between the hours of 5 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the morning, it's bumper to bumper. If you go out there anywhere between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock, it's bumper to bumper. Myself, I don't want to sit in my driveway trying to get out. If he's turning into his property and I'm trying to get out of my property, that's going to be major, the traffic's going to be jammed up right there. That's one concern. The other concern is the storage of what he's going to store out there going to bring down the value of our properties? That's it.
All right. Do you have, I understand your concerns about the traffic. It has gotten really busy out on that road. I've been out on it. But is there any, do you have any information that this change of use without adding any additional buildings is going to increase the traffic? I'm not hearing that it will. I mean, what I'm hearing is they're just going to basically change it to a different type of storage. And
well, what I'm understanding, he's going to have heavy equipment coming in off the road into his property. And that there alone is going to stop traffic on the road.
Okay. Any questions for the opposition? Okay, thank you, sir. You have another 8 minutes to address any.
Thank you.
Any rebuttal you want to give?
Sure. Yeah, the area noted in yellow on the screen designates that we plan to trim back the trees and allow greater visibility, so that when we make turns or exits out of the drive, that any driver, whether you're in a common car or a truck of some type, that there's greater visibility to not enter the road when there might be, unsafe traffic coming. So we recognize that is a location where we've got the driver of whoever's exiting that driveway needs to have good visibility. We do plan to trim back those trees and make that more visible. As far as the overall traffic, we currently probably go to our Old Hickory staging area twice a week right now. We conduct large-scale projects. The scaffold at Lindsley Hall, that's ours. The scaffold at the historic courthouse is our work. Two Rivers Mansion, Fort Negley, those are all our projects. Those are long-term projects. We're not moving equipment daily like some contractors do. So we move equipment on occasions. When we do, it tends to be with bigger trucks, but it's not a frequent operation for our company. Okay. If that provides any, confidence or assurance that it shouldn't be a nuisance.
Okay. Any questions?
I mean, I guess for me, this is, he did mention removing some trees to help traffic, but, I'm not I'm in construction, but I'm not an expert. I'm assuming the type of trucks that were coming in and out for ceramic storage are significantly smaller than the types of trucks and stuff that you're talking about. So just you know, volume or not volume, it's still just the line of sight and the fact that you're kind of close to a peak of a hill and sight distances and other stuff like that. So, you know, your trucks as they pull in and out could be moving in a, you know, I don't know how long it takes for a truck to pull out versus a car coming over the hill and their ability to kind of speed up. That's a concern of mine, a little bit, is that exit of the current driveway is pretty close to the peak of a hill and turn. So, you know, it'd be nice to have some more information on that, because we are, I think, talking about moderate change of use from storage, but larger and slower trucks. That's a concern of mine, and I just don't know how to answer it without having some more data.
I have a question to probably Joey, the applicant. So if, this application was accepted and this property owner were to improve the driveway access, the property owner have to contact NDOT and, go through the appropriate site distance, or do we have ability to condition that?
You could condition, but they will also have to get with NDOT and TDOT. This is a state highway as well, so both entities will have regulations that would be placed upon this gentleman as far as improving it to meet their standards. But if the board wanted to put you couldn't put a lesser standard, let's say, than the state. But
Who will supervise and confirm the removal of the trees and vegetation? Will TDOT and NDOT do that? I know the applicant it sounds like they're taking it on themselves.
I am not aware of either entity becoming involved with trees along the highway.
Some of that is in the right-of-way. You said it's a state highway?
It is a state highway.
So that's probably some of those trees that are in that yellow are in TDOT's right-of-way, which I assume the applicant would need to get
Yes, he would have to reach out
to remove those trees. So making it conditional upon NDOT and TDOT would kind of be two birds, one stone, in my opinion.
What was the nature of the business that was there before?
The previous business, the records, the BCA's records in that case aren't really thick on what went on. From my understanding, it was a ceramics business. They did classes. You could come there and do ceramics and pottery and such, as like a group activity. But they also did ceramic work and, constructed things and shipped them out. So, I wish I had more information for you. I apologize. The board's records just don't have a lot of information.
Would it have been some sort of, probably like a artisan manufacturing or light manufacturing? Something that would have been like a light manufacturing or an artisan
It would have fallen in that category in this code. This was even under the prior zoning.
And this particular use, though, would be a warehouse, essentially, is what the.
We would classify it as building contractor supplies, our land use.
I'm looking at, these are building contractor, I guess it's, because what I'm trying to determine is, for ag property, building contractor supply and warehouse are treated the same. It's at least in the bulk tables, there's not a distinction between them.
Correct.
So, in terms of, and I don't know if it'd be a building, if it's a building, but with respect to a new non-conforming use, are we looking at it as just a fellow industrial use, or are we looking at it as a change from a light manufacturing to some sort of?
You would need to make a determination that this use is more compatible than the prior light manufacturing use.
Okay.
The board in this case, previously, it was I keep wanting to say beer joint. It was a bar. It was like the bar at the edge of the county. So obviously their determination was, well, is this more compatible than a bar? And obviously sure it is, So it's kind of the same type of analysis you have to do, is whether this use is more compatible with surrounding lane uses than the prior.
Yeah.
Not the bar, but the
Okay.
its current, light manufacturing use.
Are we
That
in
would be the
public
equivalent category that I'd put it in
We
today.
haven't closed the public hearing. We can probably ought to close the public hearing. Did you have anything else to say, sir?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, we'll close the public hearing. Thank both of y'all. I mean, the way I see it, it's gonna be really hard for any of us to know how much the prior use was, but it does seem to me like if we can get NDOT and TDOT and looking at the pictures, there do seem to be line of sight issues. It would seem to me to be an improvement, and it would become a more conforming use if we could have somebody, competent engineer say, here's what we need to do to this area and road to make it, more safe. How do we,
Well,
I'm not sure how we go about doing that since they're
Yeah.
not pulling a building permit.
I mean, because my thing is, if this were shifting from one light manufacturing or one artisan manufacturing, I have a hard time to determine, I guess, which one this would fall under, assuming that's what this business was from what we know, the information in front of us. I guess the idea is it could be another light manufacturing or artisan manufacturing facility without any requirement to do anything else to the property, because it would be a continuation of a non-conforming use as permitted under part item A of that section.
That's a great point.
So, I mean, my thing is, as I hear the description, if we're going to building contractor, supplier, warehouse, and I'm looking at the industrial uses under the sort of bulk tables, not thinking about, what is a ceramic customer like versus what is the trucker customer going to be like here? Because I think we have to kind of think about it the way that the code thinks about it. This is a more compatible use because we're going from, something that is light manufacturing or artisan manufacturing to essentially storage. That's going to have, it's going to have trucks coming in and out, dropping off equipment, but the sort of ongoing presence of customers or users, as well as the ongoing presence of, activities and things that are happening where they're making and shipping ceramics out. It might be bigger trucks, but it'd be hard pressed to see how the volume is going to be any more different. So, I mean, I think that they've satisfied the requirement to demonstrate that it's more compatible with an ag zoning to have this be a combination of a laydown yard and warehousing. But if for some reason, if somebody were to come out here and say, we want to use this to start making some other type of thing and have, 100 employees coming in and out of the place all the time, making spoons or cups or, fancy artisan plates for one of the restaurants here in town, there's nothing that we would be able to do about any of it. So that's why I'm not sure about putting this condition on this. It is, a sort of reasonable exercise of our authority, but.
Yeah, I thought
I
about that.
think our, purview here is because currently non-conforming use, and then changing to new non-conforming use. Don't we have authority or capability to categorize, yes, new conforming use is building supply storage. Anything other than that, use is a violation of the, what we approved. So specific to building supply. Therefore, the traffic may be larger truck, but traffic volume will not be dramatically increased. But if the applicant proposes manufacturing or anything other than we defined, it's a violation and,
Right.
use will be stopped.
Yeah, and I totally and completely appreciate and hear what the opposition's concerns are. My question, I guess, is whether that, that traffic increase on that road, I don't know, is necessarily attributable to what business is going to be operating here. So I think that is a problem, but the question is whether that's a problem that needs to be borne by the applicant or a problem that needs to be borne by Metro to help figure something out of what's going on this road, because the folks out there need to feel safe where they live and where they're driving. That's all.
Well, and the tie-in to, the applicant is basically already taken the position that they're going to do some work to clear the line of sight. And Robert made a good point about that's probably in the right of way anyway, so I don't know if they want to go out there and just start, nobody ever may care, no, but I don't know if you want to do that, so, I hear what you're saying. I do think it's, just by virtue of going from storage to what they are, it's probably a prima facie case of it's more conforming, but I don't know, I mean, do y'all care if we open the public hearing and ask, so I can ask that? Okay. I mean, do you have an issue with, since you're gonna do this line of sight, have you consulted with a traffic engineer about that? Or
No,
just
sir,
y'all
not
just
yet.
Kind of spitball?
I didn't realize it was needed, but if it's needed, we'll do it.
So would you have an issue plugging NDOT or TDOT in to
No.
talk about the line of sight?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right, thank you, I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. All right, we'll close the public hearing, so.
Yeah, if he
I
has
get
no-
what you're saying
Yeah,
totally,
if
but
he's
I
got
mean-
no issue with it, I want to think about it in terms of like who bears that burden, whether it's the property owner and the person that's trying to do this, or, are we putting something on people who are asking for a non-conforming use that really ought to be the business of the county, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think to the applicant, again, I would just have concerns about going out there and start clearing it myself, so I think, I would want to put a condition, I think we can put a condition that the applicant consult with NDOT and TDOT about any recommendations or requirements they might have, and, that would seem to kind of segue in with what they want to try to do, so. Well, I'll make a motion that we approve this item D matter with the condition that the applicant consult with NDOT and TDOT about the traffic and line of sight issues and follow any recommendations that they have.
A second.
Okay, motion and a second.
Do we know if this is who's got the right of way here?
Well, I think Charter said it's state and
It's both?
it's both.
Yeah, okay.
Some roads in Davidson County, the state says, okay, NDOT, you handle it. Others, they
Well,
may share.
can we amend it to say and/or, NDOT and/or
Sure,
TDOT?
and
Right?
or, because somebody might kick it if
Yeah.
NDOT says
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't want it. So I'll amend it to and or. I'll amend it to whoever
The
has
jurisdiction,
whether it's NDOT or TDOT, that you consult, that the applicant consult with them and follow any recommendations. Still have a second, okay, still have a second, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Take a break. Okay, we can take 5 minutes before the next case.
Okay, we'll stand in recess for 5 minutes then. is case 2024-222 at the top of page 4. Outfront Media is the appellant, UniFirst Corporation, the owner of the property at 813 Massman Drive, requesting a variance from the residential setback. It's the residential setback for digital signs in the IR district. Appellant seeking to convert a static billboard to a digital billboard. Refer to the board under section 174180B. And let me pull up I know we have the applicants present and there is opposition present. Let me pull up the PowerPoint and we'll get started. There we go. Sorry, I lost my place. Okay, the subject property you see is located on the north margin of Interstate 40. This is just west of Briley Parkway. As your downtown would be on the left side of this, headed back toward town, headed to the airports over on the right-hand side. This is Briley Parkway, and this is the subject property, an aerial photograph of the subject property. The location of my cursor on the screen is the approximate location of the existing billboard, and you'll see it in the next slide. They are wishing to take that billboard at the same height and convert it to a digital billboard. That billboard sits right there on the subject property. The zoning code does allow digital signs in this zone district subject to a spacing requirement from residentially zoned properties. Based upon the height of the existing billboard, that separation distance required is 1,250 feet. And that measurement is taken from the billboard itself to the residential zoning boundary line, which is located in the center of Interstate 40. And so that 400-foot measurement, which you see is the variance request, is measured to the center of Interstate 40. So we've got a SP zone here. This is zoned residentially here, and that's the separation location. This parcel is also zoned residentially. And then this is view of my visit to the Massman Drive overpass and Interstate 40. This is the sign in question. They're wishing to change from static to digital. This is a view looking north on Massman, and another view of Interstate 40 toward town. I've included some slides, and I'm going to pull up a different photograph submitted by the appellant, and I can come back to these of the display of light from the proposed billboard. This is looking east toward the airport, Massman Drive, and then another view from that. Let me get one more. Give me just a second here. And the applicant included in their slides and in their application, and I'll get that for you. Some photographs that include views of the property directly across Interstate 40. Views, I'm no way climbing on top of a billboard, take that photograph. As I've told my family, if I'm ever found dead because I jumped off something, you know I was murdered. I am deathly afraid of heights. So just standing at Massman made me very sick to my stomach. Then views looking east toward the interstate, directly south. This is where the 1,250-foot spacing is required to that residential zone property. And then a view, this is, I believe, on the south side of Interstate 40, likely shot with a drone. So. Okay, that's our PowerPoint presentation as we have it. Sir, if you would, state your name for the record. You'll have 10 minutes to present your testimony. After this gentleman's testimony, you'll have a chance. You've seen how it was done today. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Board. I would like to reserve some time for rebuttal. I will not take 8 minutes. So I'm here on John Cooper with the law firm Holland & Knight, here on behalf of the applicant, Outfront Media. They are the owner of the billboard in question. As said, we're seeking a variance to convert the billboard from static to digital. It's important to note that this property is zoned industrial. It is also surrounded by industrial on 3 sides and I-40 on the 4th side. Mr. Hargis has explained the reason for the setback and what we're seeking, so I'll skip that. I would note that there are 8 lanes of traffic separating the billboard from any residentially zoned property. And as shown from the footage from the top of the billboard, you cannot see any residential property due to the tree line along the interstate. I have a copy of the ordinance in question that established the distance requirement. This was from 2009. I was the council director and attorney in 2009, and it has my little number at the bottom indicating that I wrote this ordinance. And I very well remember the discussion. Jason Holloman was the primary sponsor, and the concern was ambient light and the impact on residential property. References were made to, we don't want people looking out their windows and seeing a digital billboard. So that was the basis for the distance requirement, was to protect residences from that light intrusion. I would note that since then, there has been a great advancement in technology for digital billboards and how lighting works. We have submitted a professional light study from EXP. Some of the images were on the screen there. But the light study showed that all of the light will essentially be concentrated on the industrial UniFirst property, the parcel where the billboard is located, with negligible foot candles on the interstate and 0 past the median line. The light output would also be less than the permitted levels for TDOT and NDOT. And interestingly, NDOT's or Metro's standards, lighting standards, are half as stringent as the state. The state would require 300 nits as a maximum, and Metro's is 685 nits. So we're well in compliance with the lighting standards for both state and Metro. As you know, variances are appropriate under Tennessee law and the Metro zoning code when a strict application of the zoning code would result in practical difficulties or undue hardship due to, quote, an extraordinary and exceptional condition of such property, unquote. We believe that the location of the sign and the lack of visibility from any residential property and it being surrounded by all industrial property and the interstate creates an extraordinary and exceptional condition. We also assert that the billboard meets the other criteria in the zoning code for approving a variance. The condition is unique to this subject property, given its location in the industrial area and along the interstate. The hardship was obviously not self-imposed. Financial gain is not the only basis, since conversion to digital would allow display of government messaging like Amber Alerts and public service announcements and emergency warnings, all which are done by the applicant at no cost to the government. There would be no injury to neighboring properties, since all neighbors are industrial and the sign is not visible from any residence. And there would be no harm to the public welfare, given the described technology improvements directing the light on site to the UniFirst property. I would note that Councilman Gregg is in support of granting this variance. We have emails from him to that effect. To date, we have heard no opposition from residents. You did get a letter of opposition from a competitor, but their property on Will Hagen Road is directly adjacent. It's on the other side of the interstate from this billboard, and it's directly adjacent to 3 RS10 zone properties with houses on them. So we don't think that's not an apples to apples comparison. So with that, I'll reserve the remainder of my time. Happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any question?
Yes, one quick question. I think you said it, but you are following state of Tennessee standard of the brightness, not the current Metro code?
Yes, ma'am. We're following the more stringent standard, correct.
Okay, thank you. You'll have, well, whatever. Sir, I believe you're in opposition. If you can come up and tell us your name and your address, please, sir.
Well, thank you, first of all, for allowing me to speak.
And if you'll turn, make sure that red light is on there.
I got it, thank you. Well, I'm a layman at all this. I'm hit the ground running.
Can you give us your name and address,
Oh,
please, sir?
my name is William Hagan Jr.
Okay, and your address, please, sir.
Mailing address is 2015 Valley Road, Goodlettsville, Tennessee.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome, sir. To give you a brief background, I inherited from a larger piece of property from my mother's will. And I own 13.4 acres alongside the interstate, and I can't do nothing with it. Somebody wanted to put a $25 million, 250,000 square foot building on it, and it was turned down. The only source of income I have is from the billboards on it, which he explained. Now, a few years back, they put a digital one just coming off of Spence Lane, and now they want to upgrade the billboard in question. Mine are static billboards that are older than I am, and they've been a source of income. So here's the question. I believe that if that sign goes through, my signs will be devaluated, because if you own a digital billboard, you can put so many different ads up there and make a bunch of money. I've looked into it in the short term, and it was in that 1,200 square feet property. Now, the stagnant properties, again, the billboards are older than I am, and it depends on service trucks coming out there and reworking the sign, taking the paper off, or however they do it. Now, the laminate, the rolls of laminate, they do it, and the manpower to come out and do it. Okay? So, if they're making more money off of the digital signs, and I was later on, because this is just recently, petitioned the council here to let me put a digital sign in, I would be all for it. But if there's a digital sign on me on one side and a digital sign on me on the other side, it makes mine kind of obsolete. They would get less advertising revenues coming off of it because the manpower it takes to maintain them, the property around it, and other expenses. So if they can do 40 advertisement on those digital signs, and I'm guessing, because it's very hard to find out about this particular industry, then a lesser advertisement will come in there and makes my value of my signs lesser because it's not bringing in the income that it does now. Right now, everybody's on a playing field equally. This sign is a stagnant sign. It's newer than my signs. And also, they can, like I said, they can run advertisement. I've tried to research the company and everything else to find out about it. I'm all for the business of digitizing signs. But if they're going to reduce the next time my rental comes up because it's just not cutting it, then it's my only source of income for this property. And if the next time negotiations come around, they say, we got digital on both sides of you, and we really just can't afford to lease this to you for the amount of money we've got coming in now. So I'm all for this man making a digital sign, but it locks me out. It literally locks me out, and that's my bread and butter because I'm in a 100-year flood zone, and nobody will let me do anything with it. It pays my property tax. It pays, every state and federal tax that comes along with it. And if I can't do anything with the property, and I can't get what the standard of living off those signs, then I have to either give it away or reach into my personal income and pay those fees and taxes. So again, he presented all the good reasons why the technology's there. It's just the zoning, the way it's zoned now, I can't do anything with it. I really can't. Those are existing signs, and I make a decent living off of it, and I pay my property tax, and I pay all the other taxes that comes along with it. And if they come around and say, we don't need them anymore, we've got digital signs, we can run 80 of them, flash them up on the screen for 4 seconds, 8 seconds each, and make a ton of money. That's what I want to do. So that's laying out, and feel free to ask me any questions you like, because I am a layman as far as this is concerned. But it is a concern that if I lose the amount of income I'm losing on this, because they're worthless now, because you can just program a 80 advertisement sign that flash up there in a 24-hour period or whatever the amount is legally. It makes mine worthless. And they can come to me and tell me, that, by golly, we don't need you anymore. We don't need your property. And every property owner that these signs sits on negotiates independently with this company. So that's my hearsay. And I appreciate it. If anybody's got any questions, please ask.
I do. Mr. Hagan, when were the billboards erected and placed on your property?
Well, they were there when I was 5 years old, and I'm 67 years old now. Just had a birthday.
All right.
And as a larger part, it belonged to my father. Now, as far as rent goes to settle his estate, it took 8 years to settle his estate. So the contracts remained the way they were, frozen for 8 years. Now, my mother inherited those property signs when he died. And that, if I could estimate it, for 20, 25 years, she didn't know how to negotiate a contract, so she just renewed it with a marginal, I would assume, increase in billboard rents. Now, when she died, there was a family dispute about how it should have been divided up, and it went to mediation, and it decided that I would get the property. Nobody informed me that I couldn't put a parking lot to park tractor trailers on it or build on it. The only showable income was for those signs, and it was equal to the income on the rest of the property that each sibling got. So to keep that from dragging on for another 3, 4, 5 years, I took the deal thinking I got 13.4 acres, 9 miles from the center of Nashville. And that was pretty good. Again, nobody in legal, nobody in anything else told me that I couldn't do at least something that earned $1,000 or $2,000 a month on it. So my opposition is economically based, and he laid out perfectly that the zoning, if it ever changes, would be beneficial to me. But right now, I don't see it happening, because if you put one on one side of me and put one on the other side of me, they really don't need me anymore.
Any other questions for Mr. Hagan? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you for your kindness. Appreciate it.
Mr. Cooper has some rebuttal time left.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to Mr. Hagan and his position, these really aren't, he said that this would put us or put him not on an equal playing field. Under the law right now, he's not on an equal playing field because his billboards are non-conforming under state law, whereas ours is a conforming billboard. So he couldn't digitize anyway because of the non-conforming status. So we're not viewing this as any effort to decrease his rents or anything like that. I mean, those billboards didn't come into consideration when they were making this decision. So we don't really view that to be an issue as it relates to the criteria for granting the variance. Again, we think we meet all of the variance criteria here as laid out, and I'm happy to answer any further questions you may have.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you both. We'll close the public hearing and discuss. Well, I empathize with Mr. Hagan, but it's just not one of the things we consider. We have to consider whether there's a hardship, and it's not we don't have the authority to consider what competitive effect or deterrent it might be on other property owners. And I did not realize his signs were non-conforming, but to me, it still doesn't mean that if he wants to digitize, he can't seek the same in the future via variance or some other way. But that's just not something that, our inquiry can focus on. So,
Yeah. And I mean, I asked the question about the time of use. I mean, this is obviously not Mr. Hagan's case, but, I wonder whether or not Mr. Hagan himself might have some sort of position under a grandfathering just based upon the length that they've had billboards on the site, that if something would allow him to, potentially be able to do it. But that's more of just a communication to him than, a statement as to the sort of components of this actual case. And I agree with you on that, I think that the placement of an interstate in the middle is definitely something that impacts property. The way the property descriptions were, I live behind I-440, and trying to read the boundary line description of my property is like trying to read Greek. But, that line is right there in the middle of it, even if the practical effect of it is that there's a pretty hefty distance. So I know we had one of these that actually a few years ago, they were seeking a variance on it. And it was the same argument that related to the sort of change in the light technology that allows it to be a little more focused and to be, lower. In that one, we denied it, but it was because it was going to be on either at Murfreesboro or Nolensville Pike. I think it was Murfreesboro Pike, like, a block off of the neighborhood, right at an intersection and at a level to where, people are driving at night are going to be driving right into it. And I think the sort of interstate component is a bit of a difference here. So, I mean, I say a lot to think that, it may not be neither Mr. Hagan nor either Mr. Hagan or the applicant here. It may be a both and scenario that may be an option for everybody under the current, given whatever rights Mr. Hagan may have. Because I do hear his concern, and I understand and I get it. But with respect to this actual pending case, I believe that they've demonstrated a hardship.
I agree. My concern was distance to the residential zoning, because, that's what we have to consider, because this particular location is within the distance requirement under the Metro Code, which applicant happened to write in the, long time ago. But I think because of the angle of the billboard and this actual research shows it's not reached to residential zoning, rather midway to the neighborhood, I-40 interstate. And also I was concerning if industrial use is in the future changed to adaptive residential zoning. But it seems like this demonstrate it's not much brightness, so therefore it will not create, chicken roaster situation.
Yeah, I mean, the way at least, from looking at them, like if you're standing beside one, you can hardly tell that it's actually illuminated. I mean, it's a pretty direct shot at who's facing it, and it's not, I actually, from my experience, the light pollution from a static billboard is actually worse because you have really bright lights that are aiming it in sort of directions all around it, so.
Yeah, I agree. I'm satisfied with, applicant demonstrated this variance request meets our review standards, A, because if we don't accept, it will be give the property owner undue burden. And I think applicant demonstrated it meets our requirement, why we should accept this variance.
Okay, I'll make a motion then that we approve the variance request based on the hardship being the exceptional condition of the land with the interstate nearby and the fact that it's demonstrated in the record that there's not going to be any light intrusion on any residences, and there's a hill that blocks the light from any residences. I see it, so.
I second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that passes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, our last case today is case 2024-224. Paul Simiu is the appellant, Triple M Development LLC and MNG Investments. Property located at 1113 through 1119 Brick Church Pike. Can I get you guys to step outside? Thank you, appreciate it. They are requesting special exception from the adaptive residential requirements in CS. I will need to explain this a little bit further. There's been some recent council action that amended this section of the code. The appellant is seeking to construct two-family residences on each of these four lots, referred to the board under section 17-16-030F2B. There's no one else here besides us, so, sir, you'll have 5 minutes. I'll present our photographs and stuff first, and then I'll turn it over to you. This is coming to you as a special exception under the adaptive residential requirements. The Metro Council recently amended the adaptive residential code, which only allows two-family dwellings to be in a new structure or part of a mixed-use development, saying that for this gentleman to be able to build 2 units on this lot, he'd have to incorporate some type of non-residential component to the development. And that is previously under the code, you could not seek a special exception for that from that requirement because it was written into sort of the prerequisites of being able to even do adaptive residential. The council recently amended the code to make adaptive residential more prevalent through the county and more available to different sites by taking away the requirement of having to have all of the majority of the road frontage on an arterial or collector. Now you can do it on any type of local road that's zoned non-residentially. There's some distinctions between UZO and non-UZO. I won't bore you with that as it relates to short-term rentals, since those are no longer under this board's authority. But this particular request is by the applicant. These are the 4 site plans for each of the units. They are proposing to build a duplex on each of the parcels. These 4 parcels that are owned along Brick Church Pike, just south of Fern Street overpass. So this is between I-65 and Fern Street. Just south of Fern Street, between I-65, just west of 65 and south of Trinity Lane. But there are 4 lots located along the interstate parcel here. This portion of the road here is actually considered Whites Creek Pike. And they're proposing to build, as I said, 2 single families each. They are now allowed, and that's why this gentleman's request is being heard at the board. And I think we're going to see some others in the future where people can request of the BZA to allow them to build only 2 units on each particular lot by means of the adaptive residential. The planning department has sent over a recommendation to you. They recommended disapproval as the proposal doesn't meet the policies, which they stated in their memo. So I just want to kind of catch you up on, at least on this, why you haven't really.
Do you have a copy of that? Because I didn't have anything in my materials. Maybe I missed it from planning.
It just came in.
Okay.
It is in your, the online. I can send it to you down there for you.
Yeah, that'd be Does anybody else, I have not seen it, so they disapprove based on what?
Let me get I'll get a copy of that and read that into the record, right after this gentleman. Give me just a moment to pull that up, and then we'll let this gentleman present his, case, and then I'll have that for you. But this, sorry, one last thing here. Let me make sure I got all the photographs for him. Yeah, again, you saw 65. To the south, some other, different zoning, but this property over here is zone CL, or CS zoning. And then this is view north in the bottom right-hand photograph, a view north looking toward Fern Street overpass north. This property on this side of the street is zone CS. Okay, and like I said, I'll turn it over to you, sir, and let you identify yourself, put on your presentation. I'll get the planning commission's information.
So, and before the applicant talks, it would be helpful for me to know what condition did he not meet, because it will help me understand what's going on here.
Yeah, let me read you from the latest version of the code.
If I don't know what condition one met, it's gonna be hard for me to.
Sure,
follow
no,
what's-
obviously. Let me get that for you, because I'll have to pull the legislation itself up. See, this was just in 24. This was Council Bill 2024-187, adopted in July and signed by the mayor. So the conditions now state that, and what he's seeking a waiver from, it says, let's see, sorry, let me get the full text up here. And the substitute amendment, it was amended several times throughout the process. But this is the final draft reads as such, and I'll slide it over into your view. Let's see here. Yep. Okay. Bringing that over into view. And it's under residential uses, just above design standards. Letter B, under 2B, it says single-family and two-family residential uses shall be permitted only in an existing building. So you're not allowed to build new construction.
Okay, and this application is to build 2 new units.
2 new units, yes, sir, on each. The parcels are currently vacant. And whereas before, I was talking about the preamble or sort of the prerequisites, in the prior ordinance, the section just above this, let me see, there was a section that was in letter F itself that said it is only allowed as part of a mixed-use development. The council replaced that entire prerequisite section and replaced it with the language which you see in front of you now. It's so hard to scroll when you're. Yeah, I'll get that in front of you again. So again, 1 and 2 family uses, freestanding uses are only permitted if you have an existing building. So I could take an existing building and convert it to a 1 or 2 family use, but not build freestanding. But the code does allow him to build 3 or more units. That's considered multifamily under our code. And that would be permitted on each of these lots. So he's, obviously I'll let him discuss why he can't build 3 on each one. You saw the lots themselves, they're fairly small, of getting them all on the same individual parcels, but.
Joey, can you send this to?
Yes, sure can.
And it's on Municode.
It's actually on the,
Yeah, it's on Municode if you've got.
has it been codified yet?
It's in there.
Good, okay. I wasn't sure that they had codified it just yet, but.
Joey, so the clarification, so in the Muni code, it says single-family and two-family residential uses. Single-family and two-family uses shall be permitted only in existing building or as part of new mixed-use development within a single structure. Is this the newest one?
That one is the latest version. Let me pull, let's see, I pulled the substitute. Where's my mouse? Let me go back one more. There were 2 amendments passed upon it. Let me see, I don't think Amendment B. Amendment B had to do with short-term rentals, and the A amendment, yeah, so the A amendment did not change anything either. So the final version is this substitute Bill 187, where they eliminated as part of a mixed-use development and did it only within an existing building. So that's the final draft that you see on the screen now, was the substitute bill.
So it sounded like it's not allowing to build new structure?
Correct.
That's the intent?
You have to use the existing structure. The prior code said you could, it didn't permit them except as part of a mixed-use development in a new structure. This eliminates that and says you can only do 1 and 2 family if you use an existing building and sort of.
I guess the idea would be if you had a small enough building that you could have, 2 residentials
Right. But it prohibited you building a new one, which that's what the council chose to do. I don't know, maybe they revisit that at some time, but because they placed it in the design standards section, whereas before it was in the sort of the preamble of the bill, item number 10 inside the bill allows someone who doesn't meet items 1 through 8 or 1 through 9 now to come to this board under a special exception review under item 10 to petition you to allow them to deviate from items 1 through 9. And that is a change from the prior code in that 1 and 2 family were kind of up in the preamble. You had to be on a major collector street. You had to have the majority of your frontage on a collector street. They altered that. This board incorrectly granted some variances in that, which when I became zoning administrator, we stopped because the code in another section says this board can't grant variances in that. So, but those that the board granted, we've allowed them to proceed. This bill kind of undoes that loophole. It lets you do it on any type of street now, whether the majority's on a local or R2, or it doesn't matter as long as it's non-residentially zoned. You can do multifamily uses with these new restrictions, now 1 through 10, or 1 through 9. There were originally 1 through 10 in the first version. And the decrease in the number of conditions came with some consolidation of a couple of different conditions.
So the applicant is here with a deviation from one of these standards, but it's a special exception and not a hardship?
It
and
is.
Not a variance case? So
it is.
What are we, remind us of what we're looking for?
So item 10 now states that those that don't meet the design criteria, where a proposed residential development cannot comply with the standards of this section, the applicant shall be required to submit for a Board of Zoning Appeals a special exception in accordance with 1716 140 and 150. 150 is the general provisions of the special exception. 140 really is listed. It's just the preamble part. It talks about the minimum filing fee. It'll get scheduled. In granting an approval for a special exception, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall determine that the applicant has demonstrated that the relief being requested will not be injurious to surrounding properties nor violate the adopted general plan. The board shall not act on any consideration without first considering a recommendation of the planning department. And that speaks to planning's recommendation saying that it does violate the general plan.
So even if an express condition is not met, we can still find, based on the standards you just enunciated, that we can allow the special?
Yes, sir, you can, which is a change from.
Can you repeat that standard again?
Yeah, so the standard is that the applicant has demonstrated that the proposed relief is not injurious to the adjoining property, to the surrounding properties, nor violates the adopted general plan.
So I guess, the question then for the applicant is an explanation of how the proposed development cannot comply with the standards of the section?
Yeah, well, that's obvious on its face. You can only do it on this is a vacant lot, so they're only
Right,
allowed to do
right.
two-family.
Yeah.
So Joey, just to clarify, are you saying that they don't have to comply with the general provisions? Because I read it.
No, they do, they
Right,
do.
they do, right?
Yeah,
And then there'd be
that's right.
additional-
The general conditions of
General
the special
conditions under
exception.
1716, 150
150.
apply.
Those are your
In
standards.
addition to
Okay, so
proving that it does not injurious to surrounding properties nor violates the adopted general plan.
Yeah.
So
So
you have two
let me
extra
rewind then.
criteria.
So your standards are the two that are in this bill, not injurious to surrounding properties nor violates the general plan, as well as the general conditions of a special exception in 1716,
But it's
150.
one of those general conditions that you can't build a single or two-family residence in I'm trying to figure out, even, we know for a fact that this is a two-family use that's not going into an existing building. And so
Right.
my question is, we know that condition is not met. Do we have any leeway to still grant the special exception, even though we all know that condition is not met?
Yes, you do, because specifically in item 10 on the screen here, gives this board the authority to deviate from, now that that condition is a standard, it deviates from one of the 9 things you can do in a adaptive residential. They've given you authority to hear this case. They're saying that you've got to find that the general conditions are met, and then that it's not injurious to the surrounding properties nor violates the general plan. And that's where the planning department comes in and makes.
Did planning say it violated the general plan?
The planning department recommends disapproval, and I'll read to you or Christie, go ahead and read to them the analysis, I guess the last paragraph there.
The planning department analysis, the 0.40 acre site is located north of the Baptist World Center Drive, east of Brick Church Pike. It consists of 4 parcels, with 2 of the parcels having existing single-family homes. Access for all parcels is via Brick Church Pike, which is an arterial boulevard. The request is to construct 1- and 2-family duplex homes through the adaptive residential process. The proposal meets the adaptive residential standard requirements, which includes the building entrances being oriented towards the arterial street and the minimum of 40% of the building gross floor area will be residential use. The policy discusses the need for higher density residential development in the area. The Haynes Trinity Plan establishes in this area as a center and states it should be developed as a higher density to support transit service. The area's parks, greenways, street connection plans are all supportive of high-density development in the area. The proposed development is low density and is not supported by the urban mixed-use neighborhood policy or the Haynes Trinity Small Area Plan. Staff does not support the staff does not support the request for adaptive residential use to create multi 1- and 2-family homes because the proposal is not supported by the policy.
So they're in effect saying it doesn't comply with the general plan? I don't think they.
Yes, I think what they're trying to say is it doesn't support the Trinity plan that they have in place, along with the urban mixed-use neighborhood policy. That's what I get from what they're saying. It does meet the adaptive residential processes, but in their view, it doesn't support those plans that planning has in place.
I mean, but there are 2 residential houses on this property already, right?
No, this property's vacant.
Oh, it's vacant? Okay.
It may have had homes at some period in the past.
It consists of 4 parcels, with 2 of the parcels having existing single-family homes.
Okay,
So, so it sounds like what they're saying is, don't build these residential properties, wait and build a tower instead.
I read it opposite, because it's near the interstate. Christy, can you tell me the land use policy? Is it T4 MU or T3 NE? Yeah, because it would be very helpful for us to have letter from the planning. It indicate, the community plan. But if it's T3 or T4 near the interstate, the planning purpose is introduce more higher density, more multi-housing type than single-family structure. So I think if that's the intent, planning is recommended for disapproval, you are kind of wasting, resource where it can be 16 units instead of, 8 units. I think that was the recommendation based on the, the characteristic and community plan in that area. Of course, we do need housing, but as a planning point, we prefer 16 unit or 24 units instead of 8. I think that's the base.
I just want to remind you that you haven't heard from the applicant yet.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask if we could hear from the applicant.
Sorry to interrupt. It's T4.
Yeah, let's hear from the applicant. And I just needed to understand it so that I could, we're sorry to keep you waiting, but I needed to, speaking for myself, I needed to kind of understand what was going on here before.
That's fine, I understand.
So you've got 5 minutes, and so if you would state your name and your address, please.
My name is Abram Mitchell, 1326 Steinbeck Avenue. I'm the owner of the property. How everybody doing today? I hope y'all having a good day. Well, the main thing with the property, you mentioned it earlier, it's not that I wouldn't want to, add more density there, but it's kind of tough with that lot being extremely tiny and small. So, it would be a challenge to develop 3 units on those parcels apiece. Also, the unit next door, they were granted adaptive residential, 1121 Brick Church Pike. They built a single-family unit there, and I would say the main concern with me is that I don't think it's enough space to build more than 2 units. I think just with the available space, single or double unit would just fit on a lot better. If you ride up and down the street, I understand with respect to the Trinity Lane plan, if you ride up and down the street, there's nothing but single family units leading down to the property, single and doubles.
What square footage are these units you're building or proposing to build, this 113A and 113B?
They're 2,000 square feet.
You were talking about the ones on the east side here?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are.
So the one directly next door, also if you turn to the right, that one right there. So that's a single family residence that's about 3,600 square feet or so without the garage and rooftop. But that was constructed right next door. They received adaptive residential, and they were able to downzone to a single family dwelling. They're the same zoning as us also.
Yeah, and what your intent is to build something that essentially comports with what's
the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll essentially be a duplex, which, again, like I said, I would love to add more density. I've been in situations where I'm trying to get more density and couldn't. But this is one of those situations where it's truly, tight over here, adding 3 units per lot.
Billboard stand?
We don't own the billboard, so that's the property next door.
Gotcha, okay.
I would love to put a digital billboard right there, right?
These are the 2 single-family homes that planning was discussed. Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, any questions for the applicant?
No, I was going to say these views are really helpful for understanding the context, and normally we see applicants that want to overbuild their land, and so this is a very different case for us. So I am glad we heard from you because I wanted to start arguing the point that you just made. So that's why I was asking if we could hear from him to see what his point of view was.
And I would understand, I guess, should we close the public hearing, or did you have anything else?
Yeah,
I
think
have
we
one
closed
quick
it, so-
question.
Okay.
So the application has only the, a site, so it is attached duplex.
I have renderings on my phone. If y'all would like to see them, I could show them to you.
Just you can describe, because
They're
the
on-
further north, it has more like a tower type of, duplex. So you are similar design or,
Similar to the ones that are, if you're looking at the property from the street to the left. So similar design as those.
okay, thank you.
I have one more question, and I'm still trying to download the kind of changes. And this may be for you, Joey, or, you've got 4 adjacent lots, right? The idea is more density. What's the process to combine them all to get a row of townhomes? Or is that beyond?
They could combine them by deed, combine the parcels by deed into a single parcel. Generally, I recommend folks do it by deed. There's times at which plat makes more sense if you're creating easements or eliminating easements. It's much easier to do it pictorially than trying to do a legal description of meets and bounds for easements. But I don't, at least in this surveyor's drawing, I don't see that. I mean, I think it's entirely possible you could combine these parcels by deed, and therefore you've got a multifamily development now out here. There may be HOA considerations or something like that.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I mean, the idea is pushing more density, right? More affordable homes. And it's unique that the applicant owns all 4 properties, and there may be different owners and other things that I'm aware of. I just wanted to ask the question.
Yeah, so that was the,
Go ahead.
that was basically the answer to that question, is that not the sole owner. And whenever you combine it to do a large-scale development, it costs more money, and it requires more financing. So we would prefer to keep the parcels separate.
Okay, thank you.
Close the public hearing.
Yep, okay, no more questions. Thank you, sir. We'll close it. Did you have one, Mr. Cole? Okay, we'll close the public hearing.
I think I'm with seeing the comparison of what's around it. I mean, if this were surrounded by vacant lots or industrial properties that were warehouses that were going to get torn down, and we were going to start to see a series of towers get built, that'd be one situation. But I mean, I understand. I understand planning is trying to make an effort to comport with the policy in the area plan, but I mean, the area plan also encourages, enhancing the neighborhood, and sort of, I don't know that having a single property that really stands out is going to enhance anything. And based upon the sort of context of the surrounding area, and I think the size of those lots being backed up against the interstate right at the bend of Brick Church. I'm over there a lot. My dog boards at Peace, Love, and Paws, just up Brick Church from here. So, I mean, it is a lot of, if you're on Fern Avenue nearby and all that, it's all sort of like this. And so, I do respect the planning. I mean,
It seems like they're being a bit rigid. Is that what the?
well, and I think, this is a new policy. This is intended to promote density.
Right.
I mean, I think they're looking at it sort of like, what is this on paper versus what is this when you actually go to the street and see what's there and see what's around it. Density's great, but density plopped in the middle of a bunch of things that look very different is the kind of thing that gets people mad about density. And so I don't know that we're necessarily furthering the cause of density by, forcing something massive here, when we have an opportunity to approve some residential development that fits with what's there now. And it's not like all these new properties are going to get magically demolished and replaced by towers. So.
Yeah, I think looking at the properties, built the north of this property, I think it literally meets current development plan. So sometimes, the community plan or general plan is not meet up with actual, what's on the ground. So in this case, seems like a proposal is actually meets intent and, the development pattern. And also considering the street pattern, this is not a wide, street to introduce more density. So it seems like this duplex is more appropriate for this kind of narrow street.
I make a motion to grant the special exception due to the surrounding context and the limited size of the property.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that passes. That's our last case, so.
Thank
we're
you.
adjourned. All right.
I just wanted to clarify too.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.